One day the siege will end, and the baseball, as well as all sorts of other sports and activities, will be much easier for folks in Gaza to participate.
The Electronic Intifada.
The Electronic Intifada.
The Electronic Intifada.
This is the Electronic Intifada podcast. I'm Nora Barrows-Friedman.
And I'm Asa Winstanley.
Welcome back to the Electronic Intifada podcast. I'm Nora Barrows-Friedman. Today, we're taking a look at both the cultural boycott of Israel and how Palestinian baseball players are trying to make a place for themselves on the world stage. Joining us today is Robert Ross. He's a professor at Point Park University and the author of The Great Baseball Revolt, The Rise and Fall of the 1890 Players League. He also wrote a fantastic feature for us in March entitled Call to Boycott Team Israel at World Baseball Classic. Bob, it's so great to have you with us on the Electronic Intifada podcast.
Thanks. It's an honor and pleasure to be with you here.
It's a nice way to talk about everything that we talk about on EI and also sports at the same time, which I know many of our audience doesn't hear about on EI frequently. So I think this will be a really fun episode. You interviewed several players for Team Palestine, and we have some video clips of them talking about baseball under occupation and restrictions, and some video of players in Gaza playing baseball coming up in a few minutes. But first, I want to have you talk about the cultural boycott calls that happened during the World Baseball Classic in terms of the Israeli team. Which I should mention, Puerto Rico wiped the floor with them on March 13th during their game. It was a combined 8-inning perfect game by the Puerto Rican team with a walk-off and a 10-0 score. I guess that's the next best thing to a full boycott of the team. In the piece, you wrote for us that, quote, backed financially by the Jewish National Fund, the team serves as a distraction from the human rights abuses and massacres the state and many of its citizens have been carrying out for several decades now, the boycott advocates argue. The latest official roster for Team Israel indicates that only one of its players was born in the Middle East. The rest are Americans going out of their way to play for an apartheid state. And the New York Times also did a splashy story on the Israeli team, of course, portraying it as an underdog, scrappy. They even used the term David and Goliath team with players, quote, connecting with their Jewish heritage. Can you talk about the sports washing that happened last month at the World Baseball Classic and the call by Palestinian civil society and Palestinian athletes to boycott the team?
Sure. I think as all your listeners know, this year this has been particularly brutal for Palestinians, and from day one, Palestinians have been killed, particularly in the occupied West Bank, more at a more rapid rate than I think since the Second Intifada, and with the new openly racist, unapologetically racist, militant right-wing government of Israel. We've just seen this escalation of all of the sorts of tactics of the occupation, ethnic cleansing that have been going on for decades. And of course, that continues to this day. I was just before we started talking, I was reading about the attacks at Al-Aqsa. And so amidst all of this, we have this baseball team, Team Israel, playing in the World Baseball Classic on an international stage. And as you said, they've been portrayed in the media, and they portray themselves as this underdog, as this great little story, these American players connecting to their Jewish heritage, and sort of this conflation of, as Israel often does, and as Zionists often do, this false conflation between Judaism and Zionism, that representing Israel is really one and the same as representing one's Jewishness. And I don't know any of those players personally, and I was not able to speak to any of them, and I don't know if they know what Israel is doing. They should, but they nonetheless represent this brutal apartheid, racist nation state. And so Palestinians, whom I've talked to, called for a boycott of Team Israel, and this is in line with the ongoing cultural and sports boycott. PACB, the Palestinians for Academic and Cultural Boycott of Israel, have been calling on for what, almost 20 years now?
Yeah.
To boycott institutions that normalize the oppression and the exploitation and ethnic cleansing occupation of Palestinians. And so Team Israel is no different than the Israeli National Ballet or an Israeli National Orchestra that is sent around the world really in a manner that normalizes Israel as if it's a normal nation state like any other, and not a sort of rogue state that is committing all sorts of human rights abuses. And so I spoke with folks from PACB about this, and their call was quite clear and simple to boycott Team Israel and to ask the organizers of the World Baseball Classic to exclude Israel from the tournament. Of course, that didn't happen, but I think it did. At least the conversation was out there, and there are actually a lot of sort of progressive lefty baseball fans out there. That's not the majority, but I think more so than a lot of sports. And so I think hopefully at least this conversation started among folks who, like me, are huge baseball fans, but also don't want to support human rights abuses.
Right. Right. And on the other hand, we have the Palestine team, which didn't play in the World Baseball Classic, but did have a chance to play in the West Asia Cup, where they came in second place. They got silver. Tell us about the makeup of the Palestine baseball team, how they built the roster, and what baseball looks like under apartheid occupation and displacement.
Sure. I discovered the existence of the Palestinian national baseball team as I was researching for the article about the call to boycott. I did not know that such a team existed, and it's in part because they were just formed recently. This was their first international tournament, the West Asia Cup, and it was formed by a bunch of guys, Palestinians in exile, mostly in the United States, a lot around the Chicago area, but also some players from Gaza. Baseball is actually a small but growing sport in Gaza. There are some folks in Gaza who just, for whatever reason, really wanted to learn to play and have improvised. And men and women in Gaza have been playing baseball for almost 5 years now. And so the team consists of, I think, 5 players from Gaza and I want to say 18 or 20 who are Palestinians who are based in the United States. Some are college players, some are a couple minor league players, a few former college and minor league players, but really good, legitimate baseball players who just kind of surprised the international baseball community by doing so well at the West Asia Cup. These teams are not bad teams. Pakistan has been good for quite some time. Nepal has a good team. India has a good team. And Palestine came in second, lost to Pakistan in the final, and really put up some good quality baseball. And I just found it so exciting that Palestine had a team, and it was such a thrill and an honor to speak with some of the players from the team. And I just was so impressed by how proud they were to represent Palestine, and also how proud they were as baseball players. They take their craft really seriously, and they're proud that they did so well on the international stage.
In one of the clips that we'll go to up first, the player talks about how uniforms were donated by various NGOs, including PCRF, the Palestine Children's Relief Fund. I'm just struck by how I'm sure the siege that has been in place for now 17 years on Gaza has probably made it really difficult for players to get uniforms and equipment, and also just the space. What does playing baseball look like in Gaza?
That's a good question. It looks like a lot of fun. Men and women, boys and girls have been playing baseball, like I said, for about 5 years in Gaza, and having a lot of fun with it. But often, if you look at some of the video clips, they don't have bats, and so they hit the ball with their hand, and they catch the ball with their hands, and they run around the bases just like any other baseball player. And so it's only some folks recently have had access to bats and gloves, and of course the space is limited. They're often play on soccer fields in Gaza, but there are not baseball diamonds cut out like we have in North America. So it's a small but growing sport, and people are tenacious about it, like people in Gaza are about everything. And they're still managing to play baseball despite being under siege, despite not having access to equipment or to spacious fields, or much less electricity at night to play during the evening. So it's really inspiring to see. It's I'm speaking from North America, where kids here have like literally thousands of dollars in resources to play baseball at various levels. So it's great to see that the kids are still really persevering through that, and hopefully one day the siege will end, and the baseball, as well as all sorts of other sports and activities, will be much easier for folks in Gaza to participate in.
Bob, let's go to our first clip. First, we're going to hear from Tariq, who hit the first ever home run for the Palestine team during an international game. If you want to talk a little bit about Tariq and the significance of his home run, and then we'll go to the clip.
Yeah, so Tariq is a catcher for Team Palestine, has played organized baseball for most of his life, currently lives in Northwest Indiana near Chicago. And I'll let him speak for himself, but he obviously took so much pride in this home run, the first home run by anyone in Palestinian organized baseball history. And as you'll hear, he describes the at bat and the pitch in quite detail, and it was a big jolt for the whole team and for all of the Palestinians and folks in solidarity who were watching at the time.
It was a form of, it seemed like it was a form of activism, in a sense that, like, hey, you know what, a lot of people don't think that we should even exist, and we saw a lot of hate online and the trolls and stuff like that and whatnot. But we also felt a sense of pride and duty to Palestine and Palestinians, and we put a lot of smiles on a lot of people's faces. We were, people, again, baseball is very, very grassroots stage in the Middle East in general. So not everybody understands our sport, but they understand that we were having success. So I think a lot of people took pride in that fact. So for us, it was bittersweet, but overall it was very positive and warming that we were able to do that.
Yeah, cool. What was it like I understand like some of the guys on the team are from Gaza, and then you have folks across the US. Like, what was it like to bring everyone together? I imagine that was the first time you guys were all together.
Yeah, it was the first time that everyone was together. It's funny that you asked that. So again, the majority of the team is from the States, which makes sense. There's not baseballs rampant running through the streets of Palestine. But with the Gaza guys, it was a really cool experience. They got to see baseball from a different level that they're used to. They're used to just kind of playing. Gaza was introduced baseball in 2017 by a group of players that were on our team, actually. And so they're used to kind of playing with each other, and it's very beginner level baseball. And then they came to Pakistan, and we met up with them, and I think that they realized, wow, okay, we're actually these guys are pretty good. So it was really nice to show them like, hey, like there are Palestinians out there in the world that can play baseball at a high level. And it was just kind of nice sharing the field with guys that have never truly seen high level baseball like that. And hopefully that will turn into inspiration for them, and to bring home to Gaza that like, hey, you know what, this is a serious sport and we can compete in baseball for years to come. And hopefully that my hopes that it inspires a spark of the youth playing baseball in Palestine.
Yeah, that's awesome. Could you take me back to the home run? Do you remember what kind of pitch it was? Like what?
Yeah,
what
I remember
was your
that
strategy?
very well.
Yeah.
Really just focus on his command. I mean, just following through with his curveball. I mean, his curveball is bread and butter right now. And there it is right there. Oh, that's a shot.
Oh, Tariqs with a shot to the right, to center field, to left field, excuse me. It's over the fence. That is the first Palestine home run of the tournament. It's a 2-run jack for Tariqs, Tariqs, and that is a huge shot. And that is going to make him rethink his off-speed pitches, don't you think?
Well, when you hang him, you bang him like that, and that was one heck of a hit to left field. He sat back on that ball and just took it where he could and put it over the left field fence. What a sweet swing there by Palestine to take a big commanding lead.
That was a huge swing.
So he threw me a first pitch splitter, which was pretty nasty. I'm not gonna lie. I was like, okay, that's a good pitch. I fouled it off. And when he threw me that, I'm like, okay, like he's gonna throw me some junk. So like I really need to like sit back and see it come all the way in, and make sure I'm not swinging out of my pants. And he threw me a curveball right after that, which he probably should have stayed splitter because it was a really good pitch. And he threw me a curveball and it hung up, and I saw it all the way in. And as soon as I hit it, I knew. I mean, I've played a lot of baseball in my life, and you kind of know when you like get enough of one.
Yeah.
So I hit it, and I was just watching it. It hung up forever, and the guy seemed like he was about to park under it. I'm like, is he really going to catch this ball? Like, there's no way that this is not leaving the yard. But no, I saw it go over the fence. Everyone went wild. I was really happy for my teammates, honestly, because they got super excited.
Yeah.
When I'm rounding the bases again, I'm thinking like, man, I hope my family was watching. Like,
yeah,
I knew my wife, it was unlikely for her to stay up because we got 2 young babies.
Oh, wow.
So I'm like, at least my parents or some of my cousins and my brother or something, somebody. Yeah. Luckily, I got a ton of messages and stuff after the game, like saying like, wow, amazing, that was great. And then it was kind of went all over social media too. And
yeah,
to be the first ever, to hit the first home run ever in Palestinian international baseball history is definitely something that I'm going to hang my head on. And it's one of my proudest home runs for sure.
That was Tariqs speaking with our guest, Bob Ross. Let's hear from another player, Nader Ahmed, who's also in Chicago and was a contributor to the Electronic Intifada. What position does Nader play?
Nader is what we would call a utility player. He can play just about any position, plays in the infield, plays in the outfield. Excuse me. Also has been playing organized baseball for most of his life. And he, in addition to coming off the bench and playing for Team Palestine in this tournament, he also did some play-by-play. This was a grassroots effort, and so you can go on YouTube and watch the whole videos of all the games, and some of the games Nader is doing the play-by-play announcing as well.
I don't know the exactly what they went through, but from what they described, they were, they had to stay in a room that was like the way he described it. We took like this small bus everywhere in Pakistan, and Ahmed Tafish said we stay in a room that's like basically smaller than this bus.
Wow.
For 5 days to get here. And then to go back, they'll have to stay 3 days to get back in a small room like that. So they definitely had a tough journey getting there, and I commend them because they've been playing baseball for only 5-6 years out there. I guess there's like pictures of Palestinians playing baseball like back in the 40s and 50s.
Oh, wow.
But really, like, nothing concrete has been really established there until most recently.
Yeah.
And it's mostly in Gaza, which is wild to me. and they barely have any like, you know, place to play or equipment. One of our teammates, who is Steve Sosobi, who runs PCRF, he went out there shortly before the tournament and dropped off like donations that people had collected for them, like, you know, bats and gloves and balls and stuff like that. So really the cool thing about them coming out here, despite their inexperience in playing the game, is they got to learn from guys that have been playing their entire lives.
Nice.
You know, whether it was, you know, like seeing how, you know, we keep score, or, you know, a lot of the guys too, you know, it's competitive baseball. So even me, I got 2 at bats. I played 2 innings throughout the tournament. So it was very competitive.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think some of the Gaza guys only had like 1 at bat and like 1 time on the field or whatever.
Yeah.
And they were in the beginning like, why am I not playing? But when they got their opportunity and they saw the speed of the game, they were like, oh, I have a lot to learn. So it was good to get them that experience, so they realized, oh, this is a whole new level of baseball. We have a lot more training to do. And, you know, a lot of guys too are motivated and hopefully, you know, doing camps out there, you know, just to get the game growing even more, you know?
Yeah, that's awesome. So once you all got to Pakistan together as a team, what was that like? Like the joy of playing together and putting on the Palestine jersey? Like, what did that feel like?
I mean, to be honest, the joy was there. Everybody was excited, especially like seeing guys from Gaza show up. Like that put a motivation in everybody. But really it didn't sink in with the guys, to be honest with you, until after our first game or two. Really, guys were really more worried, competitive guys, you know, worried about, am I going to play? How many innings am I going to play? How many at bats am I going to get? It's just the competitive nature of athletes, you know?
Sure.
But once the game started rolling, and these games were live streamed, and we'd get pictures from Gaza, the West Bank, the US, videos of people watching us, then it set in. Then you had guys go, uh-oh, now I really got to play hard. I don't care who plays. We just got to win. And we got to win for them. Like, that's how I felt. I didn't care about my innings played or anything like that. As long as we got the W, and the people back home were just like super, it just blew our minds that they were watching baseball.
Yeah, I bet. I mean, it was also like just the timing, you know, for you all to be playing together as Team Palestine amidst like the massacres in Jenin and just everything that's happening. Like that must have been just like I don't know, what was that like for you guys?
I mean, a lot of guys, you know, we were like, you know, we get to play this game we love, and the people back home are, you know, suffering really bad. Me personally, you know, it was tough, like just focusing on a silly game, when your people are constantly just being berated with bad news after bad news after bad news, death after death after death. It was definitely, to be honest, for me, it was rough. Like, I didn't really ask my teammates how they felt, but they mentioned it, you know, they mentioned like even before games, like, you know, before our first game, Steve gave this very passionate speech about like the prisoners who escaped with a spoon, you know, and it was like, yo, they can escape with a spoon. We could defeat anybody with these bats, you know, like it was just like, I'm paraphrasing, but man, like I wish I was recording, because I had been recording the entire thing. And sometimes guys said some very passionate things that just missed the camera. But man, that fired up everybody on the team that before our first game. And then we went out there and we thrashed Nepal 21-1. And then we shut out the defending champions Sri Lanka 10-0. And then we destroyed Bangladesh 14-3 in the semifinals. And then we just made too many mistakes in the finals.
Yeah.
And everybody has an off day. You know, we sent out our best pitcher who shut down Sri Lanka. You know, there were just a few errors made in the first inning that we didn't really bounce back up from. We didn't execute the same way we were at the plate. You know, like the first couple games, guys were very aggressive at the plate, swinging at first strikes, driving it up the middle, getting a lot of hits. And then the finals, for whatever reason, I don't know, maybe after getting down a couple runs, people got tight. But we just we didn't score any runs, I think, until like the 7th or 8th inning, which you're not going to really win much baseball games if you go 2/3 of the game without scoring.
And Nader also talked about the Israeli team and the sports washing that is happening around promotion of the Israeli team as part of Brand Israel. Let's go to that clip.
So for folks like baseball fans who might not really know much about Palestine or anything, if they tune into the World Baseball Classic and they see Team Israel, like what would you want them to know, and what would you say to folks who maybe were planning to go to a game or whatever? Like,
I would say, like what I told my teammates, if for whatever reason we were in the same tournament as them, we'd boycott that game. It's just it's whitewashing. And sports washing is actually the right term for it. And just know that every time they take the field and we normalize with them, you're normalizing the occupation, you're normalizing deaths of children and women and men that don't deserve to die, that want to live, that they want to, grow up with their kids and want to enjoy their land. That's literally all Palestinians want to do. And we can't even do that. Even while we were out there in Palestine, settlers, they set one of the house in 𝐓𝐡𝐞 on fire and a car on fire. Like 15 settlers came and broke in and set fire to the place. 2 weeks before we left to Pakistan, settlers burnt my aunt's car, my aunt and her husband's car, and my aunt has she can barely walk. Her husband is deaf. So like having a vehicle is very important to them. Like hailing a taxi or, doing all that stuff is very difficult. Sometimes to get a taxi in 𝐓𝐡𝐞, they live at the top of the hill. They would have to walk down a hill, walk like another block and a half, and then go wait for the taxi there. And that's difficult for them, So to have, they don't come from means. So they don't have money to just replace the car. And I don't know if people know this out there, but to get a car into Palestine or to buy it, it's way more expensive than to buy a car out here. So it's just knowing that technically that team shouldn't exist. There should only be a Team Palestine because it should be Palestine. Okay. And it should be a group of guys that are whether they're agnostic, Muslim, Christian, even Jewish, because that's what Palestine was. And that's what it still is to today. There just happens to be a large group of people now living there that have been, exported into our country that hate us, don't want us to even be alive. So that's what I want people to know when they see that team coming up. And I want them to just either turn the TV off, or write to the World Baseball Organization and tell them that they shouldn't be a part of the organization. I remember when I was in college, I even wrote an article, I had my own sports column where I wrote to FIFA saying that they should expel Team Israel from FIFA because Palestinian soccer players, like even young guys, can't even go village to village to practice or play against each other without the threat of being attacked by settlers or even soldiers, or settlers being guarded by soldiers. Like it's just, I just can't believe this is still going on in 2023. It's mind-boggling to me.
Finally, Bob, you spoke with Ramzi Yasin. Tell us a little bit about him and what position he plays on Team Palestine. And he also talked about expressing solidarity with Morocco for what they did for Palestinians during the most recent World Cup. Talk a little bit about him.
Sure. Ramzi is a college student actually at Roosevelt University in Chicago, and he plays on their baseball team, and both for Roosevelt and for Team Palestine, he plays first and third base. He's an excellent hitter. He's one of the most productive hitters on Team Palestine. And he talked about, among other things, a moment where after one of Palestine's wins during the West Asia Cup, the team gathered for their team photo, and they had the Palestinian flag, and someone brought out a Moroccan flag as well. And this was to express solidarity and thanks to Morocco. As many of your listeners know, during the World Cup, Morocco, after many of their matches, they brought out Palestinian flag and expressed solidarity with with Palestine. And so this was just a small way to sort of say, we see you, we are with you, we stand in solidarity with you, we thank you. And it was a beautiful moment, and I think it touched the players a lot, and hopefully reached across the miles to Morocco as well.
Let's go to that clip.
Our fellow Moroccans, we had to show the love and support, because in Qatar they represent us well, and they didn't have to do that, and obviously we are not on a global standpoint like that yet. And I can guarantee you is that I know the talent that we have on this team, and I know the talent that's out there with our Palestinian baseball players, is that I know for a fact that we can get there to that global set point. But even though like we're representing Morocco, and like we don't have that much of a platform like they did for us. Every single win after the World Cup, they bring out the Palestinian flag and wave it for us, and they take a picture with it. Is that does so much for the Palestinian cause, because it's like there was so many biasness going on even during the World Cup, and it's just everything in the world around the World Cup time was a lot of like different opinions about different things, and even right now it's still like that. But just being able to let Morocco, showing them a little love the same way they show us, although we're still small, that one day they will be just as big as and still waving their flag like they did for us.
Bob, where does Team Palestine go from here? Where does the sport go? What are players talking about when they envision, the next season for Team Palestine and for years down the line?
Sure. So next up for Team Palestine is the Asia Cup, which I believe will be in Taiwan. It's tentatively scheduled for November. Things are not completely set in place, but that's the plan right now. And Palestine has qualified for the Asia Cup by finishing second in the West Asia Cup. And this will be a really competitive tournament. This will be Japan and Korea and Taiwan and, all of these baseball powerhouses across the world. So it'll be a really good competitive tournament. And I know Palestine, the Palestinian players will be quite eager to represent Palestine in this tournament. And everyone I talked to expressed a lot of hope that just by playing in the West Asia Cup and by doing so well, they're going to attract more players to come out to play for Palestine. And they all said there are other Palestinian players out there who for whatever reason were not able to play with the team earlier this year in the West Asia Cup, but they're hoping that their success previously this year is going to really bring more players out. So this is a legitimate team. They're quite good, and it's as beautiful as great Palestinian literature, great Palestinian filmmaking. You have on the one hand folks who are representing with pride Palestine and the movement for liberation and return. And on the other hand, who are doing something they love, that they're great at, that they're proud of, in its own right. Just as we celebrate, say, the poetry of Mahmoud Darwish as great poetry, regardless of who he is and where he's from, he's also this, says so much for and about Palestine. And I think the baseball players should be seen in a similar light. They're representing Palestine in very honorable ways. And they're also just great baseball players. I mean, as a baseball fan, I enjoy watching them play. And as someone who is in solidarity with Palestine, I'm happy to see them and excited to see them, wearing the P on their hat in Palestine across their chest. It's pretty awesome.
That's great. Yeah, they're really, really fun to watch. We'll have links to some of the games of Team Palestine recently at the West Asia Cup. And we'll also have a link to your recent feature on the cultural boycott, Sportswashing, and Team Palestine. Everything is at electronicintifada.net. Bob Ross, thank you so much for all of these interviews and for being with us on the Electronic Intifada podcast.
Thank you so much, Nora. It's a pleasure and an honor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching this video. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, hit like, leave a comment. these engagements help us with the YouTube algorithm, and it helps us to get around Silicon Valley censorship as much as possible. It does make a difference. You can also support our journalism by going to electronicintifada.net and clicking on donate now. Thank you.